Tonight, the Justice League 3000 is already down a member. I won't tell you who, suffice to say, it was quick. Constantine smack talks God and steals an angel, but that's like an average Wednesday for him at this point. And Superman, if your new best bud is wearing black and red, has a goatee, and has a name like Zod, he's gonna betray you. That's pretty obvious. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 124 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and I've only got like 11 comics to talk about this week. And I'm bringing that up, not because I'm trying to brag, not because I'm trying to say, oh, it's a short episode, because it's not. It probably won't be. But I'm more so pointing out the fact in 2 weeks' time, I have 18 comics to talk about. And I really just... DC editorial of 10 years ago. Hi, how's it going? I'm doing a show about you. The hell you doing, man? What kind of balancing act is this where you say like, oh yeah, 12, 11, 12, 18? Like, does someone in marketing think that that's a good idea? It's not. I'll tell you, I'm buying modern comics still. I'm buying DC as it comes out. Whenever there's 18 comics, it's not often, but it happens. I wince as I see the number pop up on the checkout machine. I feel that deep in my body. Stop it. Stop doing that. 13 a week. That's all you need. You can delay things. You can do that. Ugh. Anyway, a lot of rambling. Not a lot of talking about what comics are coming out this week. So let's start doing that. This week, we have new issues of Batgirl, Nightwing, Superboy, Superman/Wonder Woman, Green Lantern Corps, Justice League 3000, Justice League of America, World's Finest, Suicide Squad, Constantine, and Forever Evil, Rogues Rebellion. Out of that, we got more events than you could shake a stick at. So Batgirl is a tie-in to Gothtopia, which began with last week's Detective Comics number 27. World's Finest is a prelude to First Contact, a crossover between it and Batman/Superman. Suicide Squad and Justice League of America are obviously tie-ins still to the Forever Evil event going on. Forever Evil Rogues Rebellion is, of course, its own thing. And Constantine is part of Forever Evil Blight. Got all that? I mean, it doesn't matter if you do or don't, because I'm going to be repeating it in like 10 seconds. So anyway, let's get into the books that are covered up this week. Starting off with the event comics of Forever Evil Rogues Rebellion. Forever Evil Rogues Rebellion number 4, written by Brian Buccellato, art by Scott Hepburn and Andre Coelho. So last issue, the Rogues were stuck in Gotham, and then a whole Poison Ivy thing happened, and it's whatever. But we wrapped up with Mr. Freeze and Clayface showing up saying, hey, you're not going anywhere. So we pick up in Atlantic City, where it looks like it's the Daily Planet. Like, I see the Daily Planet, but it's saying Man of Steel Hotel, so I guess it's just a cash-in. But either way, the Royal Flush Gang is there, and they, I guess, have taken over this casino, and they've gotten words of the Rogues, because obviously the crime syndicate are after them, and they put a bounty on their head, and it's like, okay, we've gotten word that they're in Gotham, or they slipped out of Metropolis, and now they're in Gotham. What's the plan? And Ace gets up, and he's like, all right, we're going to go down there, we're going to take them hostage, and we're going to turn them into the crime syndicate in exchange for handling all the gambling along the East Coast, which is like really small thinking, but sure, whatever. So at that point, honestly, I think she's marked as Ace as well, so I'm a little bit confused as to who's who. But one of the other people come up and says, hey, we've got a credible source as to where they're headed and why, in which case now they've got some dirt on them. But we cut back to Gotham, and we see Mirror Master is, standing up to them. Weather Wizard's currently out for the count. And Mr. Freeze is like, hey, hi, how's it going? This is Clayface. And he's working with me, but we need Weather Wizard. And Mirror Master's like, I'm sorry, why? What's going on here? It's like, oh, well, he's able to change the weather, and I want to make it super icy in Gotham, and he can help me with that. So if you will hand over Weather Wizard, thank you very much. And Mirror Master's immediately like, we kind of don't want to get involved in any of this, so no. At which point he gets threatened, and then Heatwave steps out, says screw this, and starts blasting Mr. Freeze. So Clayface steps in, and Clayface's whole motivation here is basically like he wants to prove that he's actually someone who's like threatening, I guess. So he's fighting along Mr. Freeze's side, and he goes after Weather Wizard, but Mirror Master has made a bunch of different like replica mirror versions of him, so he doesn't know which is which, so he's sorting through them. Then we cut over to, I guess, the other side of Gotham, where Trickster landed, because he did not come out of the same portal as them, and he wakes up inside a police impound, and he's like, oh, cool, there's a bunch of cars here. I can get one of these working, and then I can get us out of here. So he starts looking around for cars. He comes across a hooded figure who's like, hey, man, I heard you talking to someone. What's up? And he's like, oh, I just talked to myself. It's kind of my character trait. He's like, cool, cool, cool. My name's Vic. What's yours? He's like, Cornelius. And he's like, oh, that's a weird name. Anyway, I heard you were looking for a car. Here's a good-looking one, but because the power went out around the entire globe, there's no way to start it up. It's totally dead. And Trickster's like, pshaw, I'm incredible with tech. I can get this baby started. So he starts looking at it, and then like the moment he starts looking under the hood, Vic lowers his hood. It turns out it's Victor Zsasz. He comes at Trickster with a knife, and Trickster just uses his rocket boots to blast Zsasz like 50 feet away. And he's like, dude, seriously? As much as your hoodie was hiding your face, I could still see your tattoo or your tally marks all over your skin. I've seen it all over Tumblr. And they name drop Tumblr. So at that point, we see the fight continuing on, and Clayface is just like, hey, none of these mirror versions are him. I don't know where Weather Wizard is. And Heatwave keeps on blasting Mr. Freeze, comparing him to Captain Cold and saying, psh, you're nothing compared to him. So at that point, Clayface is like, all right, that's enough. And he transforms into a bull and takes down Heatwave. At which point, Mr. Freeze is like, all right, cool. Hey, Mirror Master, we're going to kill Heatwave unless you give us Weather Wizard. So Mirror Master comes out. He says, all right, let's not do anything crazy. Mr. Freeze freezes him. And he's about to, basically kill Heatwave regardless and threaten Mirror Master because it had just been in his way. When all of a sudden, Weather Wizard wakes up and shoots him with a big gust, I guess, just wind. And at that point we see Heatwave come over to Mirror Master, and he's like, hey, why did you like come out for me? Why did you want to give yourself up for me? And he's like, oh, well, that's because what Captain Cold would do. And it's like, no, it wasn't. He would never do that. Don't be stupid. So as the standoff between Weather Wizard and the Weather Wizard and the Rogues against Mr. Freeze and Clayface is about to start, Black Mask shows up with a whole gang, and he's like, hey, you guys might not care about the bounty on the Rogues, but we do. At which point, Mirror Master's like, okay, this sucks so hard. Hey, both of you guys want me, so how about you fight each other to the death, and whoever does that can then come after the Rogues. And everyone just kind of stands off for a minute until Black Master's like, nah, that's stupid, fight. So everyone gets in like a 6-way fight here, and everyone's doing their best. And as it continues on, we see that pretty much everyone's taking a beating from the Black Mask gang. There's just so many of them number-wise. And Mirror Master's like, this is it. I failed. I'm never going to make it back to you, talking to Golden Glider in his head. Until finally there's a screeching of wheels, and wouldn't you know it, Trickster showed up in a truck. He's like, awesome, great. All the Rogues hop in. Let's go. So they all pile in. They start driving away. Mr. Freeze freezes one of the tires, and Clayface holds on to the back of the truck as the Black Mask gang starts climbing on. And it's just like, okay, what do we do, guys? We got to get out of here. How are we going to do this? And Heatwave decides, all right, talking to Weather Wizard, he's like, tell Mirror Master, this doesn't mean a thing. Captain Cold would never have given himself up for me. And he leaps off the back of the truck and just super fires up, supernova. So it melts the ice off the tire while also taking out the rest of the gang that was after them. And Mirror Master realizes, oh, he gave himself. He's leaving himself behind so that we can make it out alive. We must honor that sacrifice. So they start flying away. They see something is flying after them in the skies, and they think it's more man-bats. So they start approaching this bridge, which has since been blown out, and they're like, hey, we got to find another way. Let's go. And Trickster's like, no. Gun it. Trust me on this. So he's like, all right, I'm trusting you, but I'm not sure I should. So they gun it off the edge of the bridge. Trickster fires his rocket boots, which still is nowhere near enough to get them clear of the bridge. And he's like, okay, so we're going to die now. Cool. But then Trickster says, all right, Marco now. And Weather Wizard uses his gust of wind ability to trigger a sail that I guess Trickster set up beforehand. And that sail is enough to get them all the way to the other side of the bridge. So as they land, they're all happy about it. Then Weather Wizard looks behind and says, wait a minute, those weren't man-bats. That's the Royal Flush Gang. And they all come up on their flying playing cards and say, hey, rogues, we're going to take you in for the bounty. And also, viewing the bottom of our playing card, which is somehow either mirror dimension or a television screen, they show that they have members of the gang in the hospital room where Lisa Snart is. So Mirror Master's all freaked out over that. I think it's a good issue, but I don't know. This issue individually is good. I like it. I like the sacrifice play for Heatwave. I like that we're upping the stakes where somebody is already in Central City and they've got to have to play along with Royal Flush Gang stuff. All that stuff is fine. I just don't feel like the previous 3 issues led to this, if that makes sense. It just feels like the first 3 issues were supposed to be this hey, let's see what's going on around the world sort of thing, and the rogues are just how we're examining it, and also probably putting Mirror Master in a higher position of power. But this one, while we're still examining the rogues, we're doing now it's all of a sudden it's this thing of all about the rogues, though. It has nothing to do with let's see what's going on around the world, unless our next stop is Atlantic City, in which case we just got 2 Gotham issues, which I guess is fine, but I don't know, it's just a weird issue in the middle of it all. Not bad, though. I want to say, it's not a bad issue, it's just a weird one here. So overall, I think all in all, I give this I don't know, it feels like a 7 is still fair, because it's on an individual issue basis. It's fine. It's just this series has not justified its existence, and we've only got 2 issues left, so I don't think it's going to by the end. But the individual issues, totally a 7. Justice League of America number 11, written by Matt Kindt, art by Eddy Barrows and Tom Derenick. So, last issue, what happened? We had Stargirl and Martian Manhunter get away from their fight. Martian Manhunter was inside of Stargirl's mind, and then she just kind of forced him out, said, I'm going to find my own family, and Martian Manhunter realized, oh, the Justice Leagues are all trapped inside a firestorm. Gotta save them. So, we pick up with a recap page where it's just Martian Manhunter saying, oh, yep, all that stuff happened, and now I see that she's gone to find her own family, and I relived her memories, which is making me think of my own memories. But then all of a sudden Clayface shows up and just starts wrecking shop with Martian Manhunter. He is so weak of the events that have happened over the last 3 issues that he actually can't fight against Clayface, and so he starts getting suffocated with a ball of mud just around his head. And as he blacks out, he has a quick little glimpse of his wife back on Mars, and then all of a sudden Stargirl shows up and says, hey, wake up, I'm here, I'm saving you. And she blasts Clayface, and Manhunter's like, gee, you came back for me. And she's like, yeah, you were screaming out psychically, and I guess we're still linked to some extent. Also, I still have somewhat of your powers, so yeah, now you know what it feels like to be left behind all the time. So she starts fighting against Clayface, sending out rod blasts, whatever you want to call them. And she's not immediately free from getting hit, but she does very quickly dispense with Clayface. And he's drawn very menacingly here, if only to be destroyed so quickly. It's a bit of a weird trade-off there. But regardless, as she's standing above Clayface, just completely defeated, Manhunter's like, okay, I get it. You're not the scared little girl. You're like a strong woman now. You've earned your place, blah, blah, blah. So at that point, he explains the firestorm thing, says, hey, it's somewhere in the Northwest America. They're taking him there, but they're not moving that much faster than we can fly. So we may not be able to like actually catch up with them, but we can still get closer to them. And he explains he can't fly. So Courtney's like, all right, look, I'm heading out to LA anyway, which is literally, by the way, on the opposite coast. So it will take days to get there, but I will take you with. I will carry you there. So they start flying their way out of the city. And there's a figure in shadow who is looking over them, all menacing, like, it's Despero. They keep it a mystery until the very end of the issue for some reason, but like they show his red skin, his fin on his head, and his third eye, so I don't know what mystery they think they were keeping there. So regardless, Courtney explains that, like, yeah, no, like, I'll get you close. Hopefully your powers will pick back up by the time we get close, but like, I think this is the end. I don't think the Justice League are able to be saved, and as such, I'm going to save my family first and foremost. That is my priority here. So at that point, as they're flying across, Martian Manhunter like looks at her and says like, oh, perhaps her motivation is something just like mine, an unfathomable sadness, as we get a quick little shot of her crying younger brother. So we arrive in Denver a few days later, I guess. There's a family running out of Denver saying, hey, it's crazy. There was a man with a lightning bolt on his chest, and he just started like breaking a bunch of buildings and laughing, and now there's some crazy robot in there. So they're like, okay, well, the man with the lightning bolt was clearly Shazam, and I don't know how he got out. We'll deal with that later, but now there's a giant robot attacking the city, so let's jump into that. And Martian Manhunter can't get access to whoever is piloting the giant robot, so Courtney has to go in and do it. Meanwhile, he is like guiding people on the streets to get out of the way and evacuate the city, to which Courtney's like, wait a minute, hold on, he's telepathically directing them where to go, but not like mind control wise, just like a little push to get them calm and away. Is he doing that to me? Is he like pushing me to go with him? So she debates on that for a second, just like, nah, but he wouldn't do that. I would know. He wouldn't do that. So at this point, we get two separate plots. If you remember last issue, there was a flashback thing that kept coming up of there was a hostage that was taken by a villain, and they demanded to meet a superhero in order to free the hostage. And Courtney saw this, put on her gear, and says, I have to go. And her whole family is like, dude, this is obviously a trap and you're going to die. And she's like, I have to do it. So we get continuation on that while the giant robot fight's going on. And she arrives at the building. The man is like, hey, I don't care about the hostage. I was hoping for you. And so he seemingly lets the hostage go. Courtney gets knocked out with a bump on the head. And when she wakes up in like a park completely away from where she was. She has no idea what happened. And when she goes back home, she sees that her front door of her home has been left open. And as she comes inside, she keeps on saying things like, oh, when something super terrible happens, you take that memory and you put it in a box and bury it. Pretty much implying that, you know, her whole family's dead. Meanwhile, the giant robot fight that's going on, she, in her memories, remembers that her mom tore her Achilles tendon one time at a volleyball game and she couldn't walk. And because this robot's on 2 feet, she's like, I mean, it probably follows the same physics. So she just knocks out its ankle and the robot collapses. And right before it blows up, we see that the pilot has Despero's face on it, and then it blows up and it says wonderful, glorious. They have absolutely no idea. So Stargirl and Manhunter get everyone free. They make sure everyone's safe. And then they continue flying over the Rockies where we see Despero once again. So at that point, Despero says, they're resisting. They're breaking away from the template. I have to get directly involved. So Despero just stomps Martian Manhunter off of Stargirl out of the sky. He falls down to the snow below. And then Despero grabs Stargirl, throws her down into the water and says, yep, I killed him and now I'm going to kill you too. And as she goes down to the water, just being like, oh, I thought my life would flash before my eyes, but it's not. Please, please, I don't want to die. So I'm of two minds. One, I really like how Stargirl is written here. I think Her actual, like, words that she is saying and the personality she's giving off. I like it. It's good. However, I hate the fact that it seems like she's going to be given some "my whole family was killed" tragic backstory. Maybe that's her original backstory. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I hate it. They kept setting her up as like, no, I'm this hopeful one, and I'm optimistic, and like everything can be done well. And it just, I want her to be able to have a happy life, you know? I want her to be able to say, yeah, Mom and Dad, I went home. And to be fair, this book does not directly say that the parents are dead yet. It's not a guarantee. But if anyone is dead, even the little brother, it's just kind of like, it's where I'm really starting to feel the grim darkness of the New 52. Like the point where Martian Manhunter said, I finally relate. I see her motivations the same. It's unfathomable sadness. Like the moments I read those two words, I was just like, oh, God, I rolled my eyes because it's just, of course it is, you know? Of course, everyone has to be unfathomably sad because of some tragic backstory. Nobody can just do things because it's the right thing to do. Anyway, all in all, I mean, like I said, the writing is fine, and because I am applying an assumption here, maybe the whole family isn't dead. I don't know why Martian Manhunter would think that she's unfathomably sad, but yeah, maybe that doesn't happen. So all in all, I'm going to say this one's a 6.5. It's okay, but like the moment it reveals that her family's dead next issue or anyone died, I'm out. I don't want that. Don't make that happen. Suicide Squad number 27, written by Matt Kindt, art by Rafa Sandoval and Roger Robinson. So, last issue doesn't matter. Last issue was a whole thing about, like, OMAC fighting against a Shark King. Literally doesn't matter. Instead, this issue more or less completely follows the teams that were sent to pick up OMAC that were buried under the rubble of the mountain by Harley. So, in the Rocky Mountains, we see the team is basically calling out to each other. They're like, hey, does anybody have a light? Are we alive? What's going on? And they're all just kind of crying out for each other, trying to figure out what's going on. Until finally, one voice screams out saying like, hey, everyone, shut up so I can focus. And we see Power Girl is basically lifting up the weight of this entire facility over her head and saying, all right, find a way out. So everyone quickly starts looking, and they can't stop bickering with each other. Like every time someone says to do something, someone on the opposite team says like, oh yeah, no, that sounds like a great idea, you idiot. Until finally Steele's just like, all right, screw that, let's go. And he busts out through one of the walls enough that we can see them get out from the immediate rubble that they're under. So as they all get out, Power Girl gets out, and we are left with Steele, Captain Boomerang, Unknown Soldier, Deadshot, and Warrant. They are also there. So at that point, Unknown Soldier starts calling the shots and just being like, all right, here's the thing. We're going to split up. We're going to figure out a way out. There's two ways out. There's up and there's down. We have a tunnel and some stairs. Stair team is going to be Steele and Captain Boomerang. Tunnel team is going to be Deadshot and Warrant. And then me and Power Girl are going to stay here in the middle to relay information if anyone finds a way out. Okay, cool, great, let's go. So the way this works is that we are given an Argus database breakdown of like each of these characters and how they feel about things. So we start out with Power Girl, and she explains like, hey, yeah, I'm from Earth 2. We didn't have on Earth 2 any of this weird like middle ground crap of Amanda Waller, like is she good, is she evil? I don't really like that. Things were simpler on my planet, but then my planet kind of ended, and now I've come over here and I've become Power Girl. So yeah, as soon as I figure out who's responsible for this, they're going to have a lot to answer for, implying Harley Quinn. Then we get Unknown Soldier, who gives his backstory of he was a normal dude. His family died in a train terrorism accident. Not accident, of course, but, you know, a thing that happened. And as such, he then dedicated himself to becoming the Unknown Soldier, who was this military dude who showed up and just killed targets because he can use camouflage really well. And he's like, yeah, I'm not even dedicated to the US government. I do whatever's right, whatever's the right moral thing to do according to me. And so Waller showed up, told him, hey, let's join the Suicide Squad. And he came in. But now he's like, no, but I'm totally going to kill Harley Quinn when all this is said and done. So then we go to a conversation between Boomerang and Steel. And basically Boomerang's just saying like, hey, man, why don't, are you like a robot or something? And Steel's just not giving him the time of day. He's like, sorry, I'm using humor to deflect the fact that I really don't like tight spaces. So can we like get out of here? And Steel, then we go to his database thing where he's like, yep, I joined the costume thing like around the same time as Superman. I helped him defeat a bunch of stuff. But then eventually I was like, things don't change here. Like people are always bad here. And I'm just done with it. I want to go somewhere where like my stuff can actually make a difference for people. So he goes to like Ghana and Australia and like the outback. And he just builds villages and helps people. And that's his whole thing. And he holds off these gangs that are coming to basically attack the villages that he builds. And then, of course, Amanda Waller comes in and says, hey, we could use your help. And so he's like, all right, well, regardless, I got to get back to where I was. He didn't even care about getting Harley. He's just like, yeah, no, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get Amanda Waller to help me when this is all done. And then we get Captain Boomerang, where he describes how he was raised. His mother was Aborigine, and she told a story of this snake god who couldn't climb up a thorny tree to get some fruit. And there was a young kid who was too short to get the fruit. So the snake god gave up one of his ribs to the kid, which became the first boomerang. And then the kid ate and grew healthy. And one day there was not enough fruit. And the kid had grown old enough that he was plump. So the snake god just ate the snake. This whole time we're seeing Boomerang using his boomerang and slowly falling into bigger and bigger kills with it, starting with like a snake and then a kangaroo and then a person, until finally he's come across and he's got these energy boomerangs going on. He's arrested, he's put in jail, and they're like, hey, we found some of your cellmates with boomerangs in their back. You know what that's about? And he's like, I don't have a clue. That's crazy. So then Waller comes out and says, hey, look, I'm going to give you a chance to be useful. We can really test those energy boomerangs out. And it says maybe even find out how you got them, which I don't know if that's a mystery or not, but I'm bringing it up. And so he's like, yeah, no, totally. I'll work with Waller. Why not? So then we go to Warrant and Deadshot, who are down in the downstairs. And Warrant apparently did his full history on Deadshot. He knows everything about the guy. And he's just like, yeah, no, that's not creepy at all. I didn't realize you always did this much looking into that. So then we get Warrant's backstory. And apparently Warrant was basically just special forces with the Israeli special forces. And they stopped a terrorist attack at the 2004 Olympics to the point where they, even after the fact, Warrant went out and killed one of the ringleaders of the whole thing, despite the fact that that guy wasn't directly connected to it and had no, he was directly connected to it, but he wasn't doing anything at that moment. So the government had to disown him publicly, but in reality, they just sent him to the U.S. and said, hey, here's a list of people. Keep killing. Keep doing your thing, bro. And we see on the list of people is Deadshot. So he's like, look, no matter what, I'm brought one step closer to fulfilling my list. And then we get Deadshot's backstory of how, he counted every bullet and every shot that he took mattered to him, even when he's spraying bullets. It's all calculated. He remembers all of it. And he sometimes wonders what it would be like to be just serendipitous and just kill somebody without thinking about it for so long afterwards. And he sees his target in sights, and then Harley Quinn comes up, just smashes the guy's head with a hammer, without a second thought. And she's just like, yeah, Harley Quinn's got something to her. But because she dropped a mountain on me, I'm a killer. And it's weird that 4 out of 6 of these people, their ending panel is just their hands wrapped around Harley's neck. So at that point, Warrant accidentally falls into an underground river thing. He's struggling to get his bearings, and Deadshot's like, well, guess I can take him out. And he just shoots Warrant's hands off of the pole he was holding, sending him literally up the river. So we get the remaining members of the crew all busting out of the mountain. They come out through some rubble, and it's like, all right, we can't get in contact with Waller. We don't know what's going on here, but we got to go. We're going to head back somehow to Belle Reve and get this taken care of. So last thing we get is at Belle Reve, OMAC versus the Sharks is going on. Waller manages to sneak her way to the only remaining computer, which is the Thinker's computer, and as she hops onto it trying to start her, self-destruct sequence, cannot let OMAC escape sort of thing, all of a sudden the computer flashes up with "Help me." Waller's like, "I'm sorry, this is a closed system. Who the hell are you?" And he says, "My name is Kevin Coe, and I'm trapped inside of OMAC." So, dun dun dun. Anyway, it's fine. It's fine enough issue. I gotta say, for somebody who's been reading the entire, DCU, all of the New 52, I didn't need any of these backstories. I knew all of them, save for Warrant, but that's because Warrant has not been in this book, or any book yet. But beyond that, I guess it's fine for a new reader. You could honestly just jump in around here. I get the fact that because it's Forever Evil, you're going to have people who weren't reading Suicide Squad, so they would need to explain, especially Captain Boomerang and Deadshot at the very least. Unknown Soldier was GI Combat, and I don't think anyone read that. So all in all, it's not a bad issue. It just kind of feels like padding to somebody who's been keeping up with things, but I understand the necessity of it for a tie-in issue specifically with Forever Evil. So I'm going to say 6.5. It's okay. It's just not great. It's just kind of a padding thing, Constantine number 10, written by Ray Fawkes, art by Beni Lobel. This is the next part of Forever Evil Blight. Last issue in Phantom Stranger, I believe. Phantom Stranger went to fight against Blight, got his ass handed to him, and then as he went back to the Justice League Dark group that's going on right now, Constantine made the point of man, why is God letting this happen? I'd like to go talk to God. And Stranger basically said yeah, all right, let's do it. So we see Constantine and crew going in through a mirror, and somehow they end up in heaven, or at the very least right on the outskirts of heaven. And as they arrive, they meet up with Zoriel, the Angel, and Spectre. And Constantine has already met up with Spectre, but Zoriel's a new sight to him. And he's just like, oh my God, Stranger, did you actually bring us right to the border of heaven? What in the hell is going on, man? And Zoriel shows up being like, Stranger, dude, we told you weren't allowed in heaven. And here you are. What are you doing, man? And he's like, let us go, Zoriel. It's important we go. And Spectre's just like, I'm sorry. You want to come into heaven? You want to come into this domain? I will smite thee. And he just throws his fist down right on top of Constantine. And as he pulls it up, Constantine's not there. And just like, all right, whatever, your little disappearing acts, but I'll kill the rest of your crew, and then I'll get back to you. And he picks up Stranger in his hand, and he's going to crush it. And Zoriel tries to stop him. And Spectre's like, you don't have authority over me. I'm my own guy. But then God speaks up. And for anyone who isn't aware, God is a terrier. And God's just looking at Spectre. He's like, hey, I have authority over you. Stop it, Spectre. So at that point, Constantine looks and sees that he's a terrier. And he's just like, I'm sorry. God is a dog. God is a talk. This is the voice of God. It's a talking dog. And Stranger's basically like, yeah, no, I know. It's a thing. Look, God, why aren't you intervening in Forever Evil, man? There's all this crazy ass crap going on down there, and you're just not doing anything. And God's like, good question. I will show you all. And he zaps each of their hearts with the light, and he's like, I shall give you understanding. So we get Constantine's perspective first of what he's saying. And it's like, oh, Constantine, you are struggling with guilt and bitterness. You for what you did for your own family, you sacrifice everything you believe in, nearly nothing. And Constantine is like, all right, nope, screw that. I don't want to do this. And Spectre steps up. He's like, hey, God, I kind of said I'd be the one that dragged him to hell. Can I do that? Can we just do that now? And he's just like, no. Look, he's only mocking me. He's only trying to get under my skin and whatnot because he doesn't believe in me and he wishes he did. So at that point, as Spectre's about to go reaching for Constantine, he runs in his head, Constantine's saying, like, I could use this spell if he touches me, and then I might, like, lose a limb, but it would capture the Spectre, and I could sell it back to God, and that way I could get his help to stop Blight and all that. And God's like, that's a pretty good plan. He's like, oh, crap, you can hear me? And it's like, yeah, no, of course I can hear you. Look, do you think starting a fight in heaven is the way to get onto my good side? Really think about that for a minute, bro. So God lets Constantine down and basically says, all right, look, here's the thing. What do you want? And he's just like, no, look, I know I'm damned to hell. I know all of that, but you have literally not done anything to intervene with your creation, Earth Zero down there, getting torn apart by, like, evil superheroes. Why don't you care? And God's like, I do care, but, like, you don't understand. And he starts showing each of the different members of their group. First one's Phantom Stranger, being like, look, Phantom Stranger, he's a puppet. No matter what, he's being guided. He keeps on defying me, but he only keeps on truly serving my purpose. And he's frustrated that he doesn't know everything. And Constantine's like, well, tell him what he needs to know. Fix him. And he says, like, look, I can give him the power and the destiny of the savior, but in that case, he's only going to betray you, Constantine. Is that what you want? And Constantine's like, look, I can handle him. So then we go over to Pandora and just like, oh, she says she's fighting the good fight because it's the good fight, but, like, is she doing it altruistically or is she only doing it to mask her own pain? And Constantine's like, who cares? The ends justify the means there, bro. And then we go to Deadman, and it's just like, oh, yes, Deadman, he was a truly kind soul, but you put him in the body of a genocidal maniac, and when he finally turns over that consciousness, like, it'll be the end for all of you. At that point, Constantine starts throwing fists, and Zoriel has to hold him back. He's like, oh, I get it. You're just punishing us. This is what you do as the creator. You punish us because we're not good enough to stand up to your divine awesomeness. All right, you know what? Screw this. So he's already, like, done with this, but God continues. He's like, look, Swamp Thing right now, all of the power on Earth has turned off, which means that the green is going to overtake. It's going to do well once people start dying off. And Nightmare Nurse, you don't even know what her deal is. And Constantine literally says, like, nah, like, seriously, I don't care. And he uses a spell and just fades away and tries to just disappear. And Zoriel's like, oh, hold on, I'll go get him. So they start zooming back through whatever portal thing they got going on. And at that point, he's like, oh, Zoriel's following me. I mean, that works, but I was kind of hoping it was going to be Spectre. And we cut back and we see Spectre's like, no, let me go get him. I want to go get him. And God's like, no, don't worry. I spoke, he listened. That's all that I needed to happen here. And he teleports back the rest of the Justice League Dark right after him. So as Zoriel's about to catch up with Constantine, Constantine just barely pushes through the portal, and as he does, he commands the house to make, like, a summoning circle to keep Zoriel contained. So as they all stand up, Justice League Dark is already standing around, and he's like, oh, hey guys, cool. I thought I was going to have to save you guys from heaven, but yeah, no. Look, I stole an angel. And Zoriel's like, why? I can't feel God anymore. What did you do to me? And Constantine basically says, like, hey guys, I'm sorry about all that. Like, that was truly stupid what was going on up there. He was telling us how worthless we all were. And immediately they snap back like, what do you mean, man? He was telling us that we could do it. He was telling us that we are, like, capable of doing this. And everyone heard what they needed to hear there. And, like, everyone speaks up that they had a good time. And then Constantine's like, oh, I get it. I get tormented, whereas everyone else gets the pep talk. That's great. You suck, God. So at that point, Zoriel speaks up for him, and he just steps out of the summoning circle. Like, he's able to just leave whenever. And he's just like, whoa, hold up. Let's slow our roll there. And Zoriel's like, no. Look, here's the thing. He twice blessed you. First, you have seen heaven with your own eyes, and now you can, on your own, turn towards the light. Ain't that something, Constantine? And he's like, okay, but, like, are you going to do something? He's like, no, look. I understand the creator's plan. I know he wants me here. I will help you in this fight. I've seen that your inner heart, you are fighting for love, fighting for Zatanna. So I'm all in. So he shakes Constantine's hand, and it's like, all right. And God's okay with that. And he's like, yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know, whatever. So at that point, Constantine says, okay, we've got a chance now. House, take us to Blight. Let's end this fight once and for all. So next issue is Pandora. What did I think of this one, though? It was good. I gotta admit, I didn't quite get what God was saying. It did feel like he was putting each of the like people down as he was telling Constantine, but like it didn't feel like it had a purpose. And I mean, maybe that's the point. Constantine felt like he was supposed to be like punished or tortured there, but like even storytelling wise, I wasn't sure what God was getting at, you know? But, you know, mysterious ways and all that, maybe I wasn't supposed to understand. I don't know. Regardless, as a story, it kind of just felt like padding for a lot of it. It kind of just felt like, all right, last issue, we had Stranger take us into heaven. And by the end, the only thing that we want is Zoriel to join the team. So now we got that. And it just kind of felt like the entire middle bit was not even to justify it. It was more so just to have the issue, because Zoriel totally would have joined the team regardless at any point. It could have taken 3 panels where God's like, you're right, I should get involved. Hey, Zoriel, go for it. But yeah, we just had a whole thing where we had to test Constantine's, not even faith, but just like character, I guess. So all in all, I'd say this one's probably 7 up and out. It's not bad, but it did definitely feel skippable if it weren't for the one thing at the very end that's probably going to influence the rest of everything going on. Batgirl number 27, written by Gail Simone, art by Robert Gill. So it's a Gothtopia tie-in. For those of you who don't know, Gothtopia in Detective Comics 27 was a fantasy world that apparently a bunch of people in Gotham were plunged into, and it's just Gotham's the greatest city on earth, and everything's done in the daytime. So we open up with a woman named Angela Ramirez, and she super smart. She woke up one day. She was happy up until like last week. She married young. She married for love. She had a kid. Everything was great. Everything was happy. And then all of a sudden a week ago, she started having terrible dreams every single night. And she doesn't know why. And she apparently works at the Joker ice cream factory in Gotham. So she drives up there and she's like one of the execs. So as she gets in, she says, yeah, Gotham is a city of the day, but increasingly Angela only sees the night. So then we cut over to the Gordon household where Batgirl is sleeping in, and we hear someone saying, hey, breakfast, if you don't wake up, I'm going to feed it to the cat. It's bacon. And then Barbara shoots up and she's like, oh, I love sleeping, but I love bacon even more. And she runs over, puts on some clean clothes. And as she comes out of the kitchen, Alaska, her cat, is still alive and fat as hell. So we see Jim Gordon just wearing an apron, and he's cooking breakfast for Barbara, says, good morning. And Barbara sits down, starts to eat, asks, hey, where's Mom? Where's James Gordon Jr.? And it's like, oh, well, you know, your mom, she went shopping. She said, good luck on your master's exam today. And your brother is working down at the homeless shelter because he's such a good boy. So at that point, Gordon says, all right, well, I've got to get going to work. I'll give you a kiss goodbye and see you later on. And as she does so, she's like, yep, nope, I'm just planning on hanging out with my boyfriend today, or maybe one of my friends, Charisse, who, for those of you who don't know, was Nightfall, one of her villains. So turns out that was all a lie, though. She was actually going around as Bluebell, which is just Batgirl, but in the daytime with white and blue as her color scheme. So she jumps around Gotham. Everything's so happy and cool. And randomly she gets tackled out of the air, and she manages to flip the person over, but it turns out it's Charisse, who in this universe is known as Daybreak and is her best friend that she fights crime with. And they're just like, oh man, if it weren't so hot out today, I totally would have a sparring partner with you. But instead, do you hear that? Down by the streets, it's an ice cream truck. Let's go. So at that point, we cut over back to the ice cream factory, and we see Angela is setting up a surprise inspection of the flavoring vats. And one guy who works there named Leo's like, okay, well, there's a group of school kids coming today for a tour of the factory at 11. Like, maybe we should hold off before them. And just like, no, I'll take care of it myself. So we see Daybreak wanting to go down and get the ice cream, but it turns out that Barbara is afraid of clowns, but she very much denies it. She's like, yeah, well, you know what? Go down there. You get your food, and we'll talk about it later. So we see one of the ice cream drivers starts departing the factory, but his radio isn't working. So Angela says, yeah, don't worry about it. Just drive your normal route. Do what you got to do. We'll get it fixed tomorrow. And then the school bus shows up, and all of these little kids come bouncing off the truck. And just like, hello, kids. Welcome to the Joker Ice Cream Factory. And one of them's like, oh, are we going to get some free ice cream by the end of the day? And she's like, but we have some trade secrets inside. So I need to collect all of your phones to make sure you don't take any pictures, okay? And one of them's like, yay, free ice cream. And we see Angela like tearing up a little bit. So at that point, there's a scream down on the street. Barbara and Charisse jump into action. And a bunch of people who are picking up ice cream from the truck are just dropping dead. And everyone's like, oh my God, it must be poison. He just took a slurp of the ice cream and then he's dead. And so Barbara immediately starts barking orders to Charisse saying, hey, call the GCPD, tell them that we got a poisoned ice cream thing, tell them to pull over all the Joker trucks, and then we'll go ahead and stop the trucks ourselves if we have to. And as they look across the park in Gotham, they see another Joker truck sitting over there. So Barbara hops onto a motorcycle from one of the guys who just died, just zooms right across and just bats the ice cream out of this guy's hand, to which point he gets pissed off, throws a punch, but she's like, look, you're going to thank me later, and just knocks the wind out of him. So she mentions that they've been poisoned, all the ice cream is poisoned, to which one of the guys says, oh my God, my son, he's at a tour of the ice cream factory today. So Barbara starts zooming her way over there. We cut back to Angela, who Leo's getting calls from all of the people that, hey, the ice cream's poisoned, and Angela says, don't be silly, Leo. I'll handle all this. She opens up her briefcase, pulls out a mask of this super creepy, like, clown smiling thing going on, and then also a gun, and ends up shooting Leo. And all the kids start freaking out, and she's just like, oh, no, don't worry about it, kids. Everything's going to be fine. And she says, now, did you know that I once had a husband and a daughter that was around your age, and they're all gone now, but I'm going to get us all together as a family again soon, including you kids. You can call me Mother Mercy. So outside of Joker Factory, we got, snipers, everything like that. A bunch of detectives are coming up, and Daybreak and Bluebell show up, and they're just like, hey, we might need you to go inside. There's, like, we heard gunshots going off. There's something going on in there, and there are kid hostages. To which point, Bullock comes up and says, hey, we got orders from the mayor that we're supposed to use a sniper, so you guys aren't going in. We got a sniper set up for this. And Bluebell's like, but the kids. And Bullock's like, I'm sorry, orders are orders. So at that point, they go out around, like, away from the police area, and we get Mother Mercy giving her thing, just being like, I remember I was so happy, and then one day I had to go and identify their bodies. They were roller skating that day, and then there was some sort of an attack, and their bodies were, like, grinning. They had this unnatural smile, but it's so weird because I, like, can't remember it anymore. It's just gone. All I feel is joy, but I shouldn't be feeling joy. Why do I feel joy when I've lost so much? So at that point, Bluebell and Daybreak come up with a plan. They just need Daybreak to run a distraction so Bluebell can get into the building. So at that point, Mother Mercy continues saying, like, every time I come into work, I see a reminder of it. This damn Joker smile. Like, it's all over the city. It's everywhere here. And I can't take it anymore. So I'm going to take all you kids out of it as well. Like, we're all going to go together. So at that point, Sniper's getting set up. Daybreak comes over to Bullock's cop car and says, hey, is that your car? And he's like, yeah. And it just explodes, and she shields him from the explosion long enough for Bluebell to get inside. And Daybreak's like, I'm arrested, aren't I? And he's like, oh, I don't know. Let me think about that. So as the Mother Mercy's about to do her thing, one of the snipers is getting prepped, but Bullock calls over the radio, like, look, Bluebell's going in. Just, if she gets in the way, you take her out. Understand? So at that point, one of the girls is like, no, you can't make us eat this ice cream. You can't make us do it. And she's like, oh, yes, of course I can. And at that point, Bluebell comes in like, pshaw. So they start fighting, and Mother Mercy's like, look, I'm just having a really bad day, okay? Like, you can't really blame me on this. And as Bluebell gets a good look at her, sees the Joker smile iconography on the wall and her mask, she all of a sudden remembers the Joker having her mother hostage in the roller rink and Joker doing his proposal thing to Batgirl. And as she's like having this flashback, Mother Mercy's like, you remember the way it was. I knew I wasn't alone. I knew other people remembered it. I'm not crazy. I'm not alone in this. And as she's saying that, Sniper takes the shot and shoots Angela in the chest. And as she is bleeding out on the ground, she's like, oh, I see it as it is now. Everything's so dark all of a sudden. I'm going to go see my family. And she ends up dying there in Bluebell's arms. And Bluebell's narration is like, I can't accept that things are that dark. So I'm just going to forget that I remembered anything, because it is so much better to live in this fantasy than it would be to wake up to whatever's on the other side. So tune into Detective Comics to see how that manages to get resolved. Solid story. Honestly, I really do think it was a well-written one. It set up everything it needed to. It worked with previous continuity as well, like that roller rink setting. I don't know. I was just kind of impressed with it all around for what is essentially just a tie-in issue to a very low-tier event. So all in all, I think this one's probably like an 8. I really do think it's a solid one. So yeah, like I said, wrap up to that's probably going to be in Detective Comics, either 28 or 29. I think it's a 3-part event. So yeah. Nightwing number 27, written by Kyle Higgins, art by Will Conrad. So last issue we had Nightwing chasing after I don't want to say supervillain, but a woman who's taken the name Marionette because she's hunting down a drug called Canium. And as she's trying to rob a place, wouldn't you know it, Mad Hatter is apparently involved in her backstory. So as we have Nightwing, Marionette, and Mad Hatter all meeting up here, Mad Hatter's like, cool, awesome. We're going to save the girl and kill the superhero. Cool, got it, great. So at that point, Nightwing throws down some flashbangs, and Marionette's like, hey, I'm willing to bet that the hats have mind control in them. Truce for now? And Nightwing's like, all right, truce. So they go up against Mad Hatter's goons, and it's like, yeah, well, all we got to do is knock off their hats. It's like such an easy design flaw. So Nightwing takes 2 of them, throws his excrement sticks, takes off their hats, but they still keep coming at him. And it's just like, all right, well, any other ideas as to how they're being mind controlled? So at that point, Marionette picks up the excrement sticks and starts like, I wouldn't say flirting with Nightwing, but just making some banter with him, saying how he's overcompensating. And he's just like, no, it's a balance thing. That's why there's 2 of them. So at that point, Mad Hatter starts firing off a machine gun at Nightwing. It ends up hitting some of the boxes on the shelves, which is the Canium that Marionette's looking for. And as they see, what's his name? The friend, I think it's like Henry or something, his phone gets broken. And once it's broken, the mind control wears off. And Marionette looks at another one's phone and sees that it has an ongoing call, so she just shuts it off. And immediately the 2 come to the realization it's their phones. That's what's mind controlling them. We got to take out their phones. So they take out the phone of the detective and the other guy. Again, I think his name's Henry. But regardless, they take off the phones of those enough to de-mind control them, and then they just leave. They just bail them out of the building and run away before the cops show up. So then we get a little flashback to Marionette, whose real name is Molly. She, raised totally normal girl, and then one day she was kidnapped by Mad Hatter, was given like some sort of like brain surgery or something to make her believe that she is Mad Hatter's Alice. And then when Mad Hatter got bored with her, she got shot and then just left for dead. But she wasn't actually killed. She woke up in a ditch with a whole bunch of other dead Alices, and she's explaining all this to Nightwing in a hotel, and basically saying like, yeah, no, Mally's not even my name. I don't know what it is. Like, I barely have any sort of like memory as to what I actually was before that, but I've got something called personality slipping, which is where I kind of just do whatever I see other people do. And that's where the mimicry thing comes in. So she explains, like, yeah, I've been to a bunch of doctors, but they all just agree that he broke me somehow. But the cranium, that new drug I'm stealing, it brings me back to like a baseline. It doesn't let me be as, it doesn't solve the problem, but it doesn't let me be as frenetic as I usually am. And she just starts like breaking down slightly. And Nightwing does a little bit of like body language analyzing of her. And she's like, he sees that she's anxious and worried and she's afraid. And he's just like, okay, all right, I get it. So he goes back to his home and he's like, yeah, no, I felt bad for her, but I said, we'd take down the Hatter together. And she specifically said that, like, I just want to end it. I want it all to stop. So Nightwing goes back to his place, and as he's going back inside, his window has once again been closed and locked by his roommate. And he's like, son of a bitch. So he has to go back around the normal way in, and we see that his roommate, what's her name? I can't remember. Is it Jen? No. God, I can't remember her name. I think it's Joey. Joey is basically like putting away his shoes and stuff back into his room. And as he busts in, she shoves the shoes off to Jen, the little girl that is joining them temporarily. And Jen goes and puts the shoes away while Nightwing basically chews out Joey and just like, hey, why are you obsessing over me? Like, this is not crazy for me to have a window open or like leave a pair of shoes out. This is not something that's to be so insane. She's like, I'm just trying to keep the place clean. He's like, no, I just want to have normal roommates. And so they start yelling at each other until finally he's like, well, if you're so unhappy, why don't you start looking for another place? And Nightwing's like, yeah, sure, maybe I will. So he storms out. But as Jen is going to put the shoes away back in Dick's room, she opens up a false panel accidentally and sees the Nightwing costume. So that's happening. Meanwhile, over at a place called Drexler Chemicals, Mad Hatter's meeting up with like the CEO and is basically like threatening him, saying like, oh yeah, we came into a deal. Things have changed now, but even if they shut down the warehouse where all those chemicals were, you're not linked to it at all. And the CEO's like, okay, but like, I don't want to, like, this seems a bit involved regardless. This wasn't what the deal was. And he's like, well, I'm changing the deal and I'm going to get my Alice back. So we cut to the next night. Marionette's already tracked down the Hatter, and they figure out the link with Drexler Chemicals and all that. So they make their way into the chemical place, and immediately Marionette takes Nightwing, kicks him in the back of the head enough to distract him, activates the alarm, and runs off without him. So Nightwing's forced to take down the guards and stuff while Marionette makes her way to Mad Hatter. And Nightwing's playing back like, I thought we were cool. She said that, like, she was afraid and all that, and she wanted it to stop. But then he realizes, like, oh, wait, she wants it to stop, like, permanently. She's going to kill Mad Hatter. All right, I got to stop that from happening, no matter how evil Mad Hatter is. And as he finally breaks through all the guards and busts in, he finds Mad Hatter there, just pinned up to a wall. All of his tea, which is laced with chemicals, has been stolen, and he's just fine. And Nightwing's like, I'm sorry, I'm confused. What's going on? And Mad Hatter's like, oh, I get it. She told you that she was like this scared little girl, and then all the terrible things that happened. Yeah, no, she's clever like that, but that's not who she is. And Nightwing realizes that the tea that has been stolen from Mad Hatter was laced with decanium, which means that she has plenty of a supply in order to keep her baseline now. She's basically just dropped off the face of the earth. So at that point, Mad Hatter gets handed over to the police, and Nightwing realizes, like, yeah, no, I thought she was telling the truth, but, like, maybe it was a part of her. She was a little bit, like, schizophrenic, like, split personality, so I don't know. Maybe I'll never know, but at least, hopefully, she's getting some amount of help now. So after that, he goes up to the bar and that he works at now, and he's talking to Michael. Guy's name was Michael, and Michael's like, yeah, no, after the Mad Hatter thing, I told the detective that I work with that I don't want to be a part of this anymore. It was just too much. I'm out, even if that ruins my career. And Nightwing's like, yeah, it's good for you. You shouldn't. Sometimes whenever things are going bad in life, we feel the urge to, like, cling to the few things that we can control. And it's good for you that you're not. And then all of a sudden a little light bulb goes off in his head and he's like, oh crap, something's going on with Joey. So makes his way back to the apartment and he apologizes and he's like, hey, look, I'm sorry I blew up at you last night. I've had some stuff going on, but that's no excuse to take it off on you. And she's like, yeah, look, sorry. I'm sorry I've been so OCD. I also have had some stuff going on. And Dick puts together like, hey, I noticed, you work from home. You're a coder. You work from home. But like, you wouldn't have the time to watch Jen if you were working. Did you get fired? And she just breaks down a little bit and says, yeah, they said my personality wasn't a fit. So she was afraid to come forward about that because obviously she's not making that much money now. But Dick comforts her and says like, hey, it's going to be okay. I'll help however I can. So at that point, Jen's parents show up to pick up Jen, and she's apparently been drawing on her tablet for a while, and they're like, oh, can we see your drawings? And she's like, no, it's a secret. So as she's leaving, she gives Dick like the wiggly eyebrow. She's like, I'll see you later, Dick. And as she leaves, we see her tablet has the Nightwing logo on it because, of course, she knows the secret. So all in all, fine issue. It's good. It's just kind of like a little two-parter thing. We had Marionette, and then we got this other thing. Dick is having roommate problems, and they actually, I think they set that up the issue before last, actually. So all in all, good amount of characterization. We're working through it very nicely. And of course, the big reveal that now somebody knows Dick's secret identity. I'm sure that'll play out within the next couple issues as well, because, reminder, this series wraps up on issue 30. So we'll see what all actually gets dealt with. All in all, I'd say this one's probably a solid 8. It's good. It's well written. I don't really have much of an issue with it. I am kind of a sucker for the hero having like a Pyrrhic victory, or like not fully understanding everything that's going on and being played a little bit. I don't know. I when that's done well, I think it's done really well. So all in all, this is an 8, and I'm looking forward to the next issue. Superboy number 27, written by Marv Wolfman, art by Andre Guinaldo. Last issue. Okay, so we're stuck with John Kindt instead of Con Kindt, and John Kindt is evil, and so he went down into the basement of this hospital, and he discovered that Con Kindt, who he's taken the identity of, is going to be responsible for founding the Legion of Superheroes. And then none of that matters. Literally none of that matters at all. So we open up with John going through a city in the late 30th century, because that's where they're at, and there's a voice in his head basically telling him like, hey, you're never going to get away from me. I'm deep in your head. And John's just freaking out, just saying, shut up, until finally he like runs into a building and he sees a visual of a woman in a test tube, and in her head it's just saying free her, release her, free her. But that's just in his head, because when he cuts back to, he's being attacked by a group of colony soldiers, and all of their eyes are just white and dead, and they keep on firing at John. He makes some TK shields, but the voice in his head is being like, that's pathetic. Those shields won't save you. And he's just like, shut up. And then all the guards start laughing. And he's like, what's so funny? And just be like, oh, it's funny because my power set derives itself from the emotions and the feelings of people around me, and there were some street performers nearby, and they were causing joy and happiness, so now I'm feeling joy and happiness. And immediately we get the name of this person, which is Schiz, as in schizophrenic, because this person has schizophrenia, like it's just established that. And so John freaks out and says, show yourself, Schiz, to which point this girl shows up holding a knife and a gun, just in all this bodies of street performance, being like, oh yes, I've killed them all, and I guess I'm picking up your anger because that's what allowed me to kill all of them. And somehow the anger and the joy of that caused me to go through this city, like a bunch of people here, and I put on a show for them, but the people who were immune to it, I had to kill them and call it murdertainment. Then we see a woman reaching out for a baby in a carriage, and she's like, well, there goes my motherly instincts. I'm going to have to protect these people, and I'm never going to let you cause them any harm. And Conrad's like, all right, I'm done with this. So he just blasts them all away, using his TK ability, and stands up to Skiz being like, what do you want? Why are you doing this? And she's like, oh, you're so serious now. I feel serious too. And the whole reason I'm doing this because your people bred us, but then you turned on us. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm not even from this time. He's like, great, exactly. You were the first one. I'm one of the many, many generations later that's condemned to a death because of you. And so she uses her ability to take a gun that's in John's hand, put it in his mouth, and force him to almost pull the trigger. But before he can do so, Raven comes in, grabs John, and just teleports him out. And so now they're at the top of some snowy mountain peak. And immediately John's like, oh, you saved me. Raven, what's going on? And he's just like, of course I saved you. I'm going to have to calm you down, though, because her powers are still influencing you. And so eventually puts down the gun. And she's like, yeah, here's the thing. I know who you are. You're John. You're just faking that you're Khan. Like, and you have this dark, deep history behind you. And he's just like, what are you talking about? I'm Superboy. And she's like, yeah, no, but like, no, you aren't. You're taking the place of him and you're betraying the Titans and whatnot. And he's like, well, I don't know what you think you know, but if it came down to between you and me, I know that the Titans trust me a hell of a lot more, so they'll trust me when I tell them that you had a fatal accident. And he charges at Raven, and she just lets the punch phase through. Like, it does nothing. And just like, look, you can't hurt me, you can't touch me. It's like, come on, you should know better than that. So he starts firing off TK bolts saying, okay, well, what if I drop the whole mountain on you? And he's just like, look, I'm the firstborn daughter of Trigon. Nothing you do is going to affect me. And by the way, you got to understand this. I need them to continue to be alive for now. But that won't always be the case. And then me and you are going to be on the same side here, okay? But I need you to calm your ass down and stop seeing the world through so much hate. So Raven, like, disappears out of there. And he's just like, how could we be on the same side if she won't let me kill the Titans? Like, that's ludicrous. I can't even understand that. So at that point, he realizes, oh, yeah, so my only hope that I had was of saving my life because I'm dying because my DNA is incompatible with each other because I had a meta mother. So much backstory. He basically says, well, Raven may know another way to save me. That's kind of like what she was somewhat implying there. So maybe I should trust her. And Raven's voice speak out saying like, oh, yes, there's always another way. Go deal with Skiz. So at that point, he goes back somewhere. Like, I have no idea where they are. He's just in some underground lab where there's 5 vials of, like, people in them, and the 5th one is broken, but he focuses on the one with Skiz in it, and he hears the release her inside of his head, but he doesn't even have to because Skiz wakes up, uses some eye lasers to bust out of her pod, and then comes out. And she explains like, oh, I feel all of these people's emotions around, and oh, I feel so much anger. Everyone's always so angry. Like, they want their own spouses dead. They want their friends to be slaughtered. Everyone's so evil and corrupt, and I feel that all the time. And Superboy's like, all right, bye. And he just leaves. And as Skiz stands there, it's just like, yeah, look, we are born a millennium ago and on the other side of the galaxy, and now you and I are connected. So we got a dual page here where Skiz uses her mental powers to track where Superboy's going, which he's going to Echo Hospital, and then Superboy's using his powers to track where Raven's going, which is to Echo Hospital. So they both meet up there, and he comes back and he's like, oh yeah, Echo's genetic lab. This is where it all began for me. This is like where I was saved in the future because of my powers and blah, blah, blah. And then he gets jumped by Skiz, and she just like latches onto her head saying, oh, I have to free all my friends. And long story short here, they get into a little bit of a fight, but then Skiz explains, all right, look, here's my history. You were designed to kill metas. That was your thing. However, I'm not a meta. I am a normal human who was given extraordinary abilities by the people who also wanted to kill metas, but people couldn't tell the difference between us and metas, therefore they hunted and killed us as well. And this is all your fault because you were the first one and you didn't do enough to stop it. So we've just kind of lived on the outcasts, but now we've been captured and blah, 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 blah. Now nearly 100 of us still live in pods hidden across the wasteland. And because of his emotions and whatnot, Skiz is feeling what he feels, and she's like, I want to raise an army for you, and we will both kill the Titans and all the metas together. Let's go get the other soldiers out of their pods. And she's just like, okay, so you attacked me, now you want to work for me? And she's like, yep, you'll find I'm actually schizophrenic. Like, that's just going to keep happening. It will change again. Do not doubt that. So they embrace, and then Raven's looking on and just being like, oh yes, my master plan is working perfectly. This is exactly as I foresaw it. Are you pleased, great Trigon? God, I hate this book. No, I was really hoping that, you know, a change in writer, a change in literally the main character, that we would be able to get away from the idea of, what? Huh? What the hell is happening? But no, it just continues on as it ever did. It's just not well written. I mean, whatever happened last season, remember I said all this stuff of like, oh, he discovered the Legion of Superheroes, and yes, there was a voice in his head, but like, we didn't know anything about that. This issue picks up and he's like already hallucinating, or maybe he's not. It's impossible to tell. And I have no sense of location. I have no sense of what's going on. And it just seems like nobody knows what's happening with Superboy, honestly. So all in all, I'm going to give this one like a 3. Like, I didn't like the art. I didn't like the structure. I like nothing about this. The only reason I'm getting it a 3 is because, like, I'm not going to remember it. It's not something that's going to live in my head rent-free. I'm going to just forget I read this and move on to the point where next month I'm going to need a refresher. So, God, it's just, someone's got to be able to do Superboy right, you know? Superman/Wonder Woman number 4, written by Charles Soule, art by Tony S. Daniels. So last issue, Zod showed up and was brought to the Fortress of Solitude by Superman, put on lockdown while he just sorts everything out. And then Superman and Wonder Woman's relationship was leaked to the public. Everyone knows about it. So we open up with Clark and Diana just sitting and talking, and they're just like, okay, using your super hearing, what are people saying? And he's like, they're saying pretty much everything all over the spectrum. And she's like, okay, ignore them. Don't worry about it. Look, just listen to me. And she goes on this whole long thing about like, look, you are Clark and then you are Superman. Those are two separate entities, but like, is it such a bad thing that like, maybe you stop being Clark and just be Superman all the time? Like, you can still do the Clark things. You just have to like give up the identity. And she's like, he basically is just like, no, I chose to be, look, I'm a writer because it's hard. It's something that even with Superman abilities, like I can't just fake my way through. I have to actually put effort into it. That's the same sort of way that the Clark thing is that I don't want just Superman all the time. Sometimes I would like to be human. And at this point, he's like, look, this leak, this reveal to the public happened through my website that I'm a part of, which is stupid as hell, but I have to go look into that. Or can we like meet up later? And she's like, yeah, of course. Go on. Do your Clark thing. So the narration at this point is basically all Wonder Woman. And over the course of it, she's basically saying like, yeah, me and him are like very different. We view the world very differently. And that's not like an inherently bad thing, but it is something that over time is going to change. And we see Zod is standing in the monitor room of the Fortress of Solitude. He's just looking over the whole of the planet, and he's like, all right, cool. Got a feeling for how this Earth works out. Hey, look, there's the Phantom Zone projector. I'm going to go and get my loved one out of it. And he goes over to try to activate it, but for some reason he can't. And he's just like, wait a minute, how in the hell did that idiot... And he starts like getting pissed off. He's like, you know what? Whatever. I can trick him into it another way. So he walks back over to his quote-unquote cage and gets inside. After some time, Superman comes back and he sees Zod there. He's like, hey, Zod. And Zod tries talking to him in Kryptonian. He's like, hey, do you know Kryptonian? He's like, yeah, a little bit. And he's like, I could tell you learned from the computer because you have like no accent. It's super freaky. And Superman's like, okay, whatever. Anyway, I need to talk to you. And Zod's like, hey, what about your girlfriend? Where's she at? She was so cool. Man, you really did a good job there. You're just like your dad. You like him fierce. He's like, okay, but Zod, seriously, focus here. I need to talk to you. What do you know about Doomsday? And he's like, what the hell's a Doomsday? And he's like, it's a big thing, gray, bones everywhere. It would have been in the Phantom Zone. And he's like, oh, yeah, Doomsday. Is that what you're calling him? Good name. Yeah, so Doomsday, fierce creature, bad thing. Yes, he was in the Phantom Zone, and in fact, the whole reason I was in the Phantom Zone was in order to make sure that that thing never got out. And Superman's like, well, you suck at it, because we fought it on a boat. And he's like, what? No, that's impossible. Do you have a Phantom Zone projector? And he's like, yeah. He's like, bring it here. We got to deal with this. We got to deal with this now. So Superman goes over to the Phantom Zone projector, brings it over, and he's like, yeah, hey, I put a password, like a genetic lock on this thing so that nobody else is able to use it. Just a precautionary measure. I'll unlock it for you. And he's like, yeah, no, totally, absolutely. But then he puts in, he's just like, oh yeah, why are you so afraid of me? He's like, I'm not afraid of you, Zod. I'm just cautious until I know exactly like who you are and like I can verify some stuff about you. And he's like, right, totally. I absolutely get it. So then Superman clears off the genetic lock, and then Zod just says a word in Kryptonian, and immediately his cage falls apart. And Superman's like, I'm sorry, what's just happened? He's like, dude, these things aren't cages. Like, yeah, I know they look like that, but they're more like shipping containers. And in order to open them, there's a default password that I figured you were too stupid to know how to change. So, yeah, I just let myself go. And in order to keep you busy, I'm going to free all your monsters while I do my thing. So he says the word to free all of the different beasts that Superman's caged up in here. And, yeah, Superman is immediately, like, overrun by it. But Zod starts up the Phantom Zone projector, and through it we can see this figure, this person, and Clark immediately busts through some of the monsters enough to pop Zod in the face. And as Zod is bleeding on the floor, he's still good. He's still all right. Superman's asking, like, what are you doing, man? Just walk me through your thought process. So you might still be savable here. And he's like, oh, I would do what any man would do. And Clark's like, okay, well, if you're freeing something from the Phantom Zone, sorry, that's a no-go. So he zaps Zod with his heat vision. And Zod counters back. He's like, dude, if your girlfriend was trapped in there, would you do anything to save her? And he's like, I mean, I get. And as he's distracted, Zod hits him with the laser beams as well. So Zod finally taps in the final things he needs to the portal. And the narration from Wonder Woman is basically saying, like, yeah, there's one thing that both of us know is that at the end of the day, both of us are going to be leading our separate lives, and if we don't manage to like come together, we're both going to end up facing it alone. And we see the woman coming out of the Phantom Zone, collapses into Zod's arm, and he says, Feora, and he hugs her. There's also a backup story, but I'm going to cover that at a later date. So yeah, no, this is a solid issue. I mean, half an issue. The backup story relates to him going to Cat Grant and being like, hey, what's up, man? But no, this one is solid. I really like this idea of, okay, we're doing a parallel of Superman and Wonder Woman with Zod and Feora, and we're going to show how they line up together and what their thing's going to be, because it's a superpowered couple versus an evil superpowered couple. So I'm down with that. All in all, I'd probably say it's like I'm going to go with like a 7.5. I probably would give it an 8, but it is just because it's only half a story, because the other half is the backup. It's kind of just whatever on its own. But I am definitely looking forward to how we continue this, because it's solid setup throughout. We're setting up this idea of like, you know, can Superman truly like open up if half of his life is just not with Wonder Woman? So no, I'm in. It's a good story. Green Lantern Corps number 27, written by Robert Venditti and Van Jensen, art by Bernard Chang and Sean Chen. So, last issue of Green Lantern Corps is kind of actually whatever. Last issue that you need to care about is Green Lantern, where as we're rebuilding the Green Lantern Corps on Mogo, Hal was attacked by the Durlans, and they shapeshifted into him and sent out a message across all of space saying, hey, Green Lantern Corps is fascist now. So we open up in this where we're in Space Sector 422, where there is a Green Lantern like hub or something for the sector that has been attacked, and John and a few other Green Lanterns are analyzing it, trying to see what's going on. Fatality is also there, and one of the guys named Vath is basically like, hey, Fatality, how's the killing Green Lanterns going? And John is immediately like, all right, shut that down now, because I am not having that. She is not the same person anymore. So they all head up into the clubhouse, or whatever you want to call it, and they start analyzing like what was going on, and using some actually pretty interesting clues here based off of like explosion patterns and claw marks and stuff like that. They're like, okay, clearly they were jumped. There was an explosion. They didn't see it coming. Several of these like marks and stuff were caused by their own constructs, so they were able to fight back. There's some explosions here with some perfectly clean areas behind it, showing that they set up like a shield area. And then there's some blood spatter, which means that they had to let down their shields, meaning they were probably out of a charge of their battery. So at that point, they went for their batteries, but they were attacked, and now there's no sign of them. But they weren't killed because their rings were not sent out anywhere either. So they're still alive somewhere. And that thinks that it has to do with the people that were let out of the science cells when Oa was destroyed, but there's nothing to say that. And also they find a little bit of technology here that when it's brought into contact with John's ring, it starts immediately draining it of its charge, to which they're like, that's relics tech, man. What is going on here? This is something bigger than we have any idea what's going on. So we see all the people who escaped the science cells. They're in a bunch of ships, and it's just a bunch of villains that seem like they're all from Green Lantern's history. And immediately they're just like, oh, we should be doing this. No, we should be doing that. And they all just start fighting with each other. So as they're fighting, one creature stands up and it's just like, all right, hey, everyone, together we're going to destroy them. And everyone's like, I'm sorry, I don't even recognize you from the cells. Who the hell are you? And she's like, oh, perhaps you'll accept this face, and transforms into the one that calls him out. And it turns out, yep, it's the Durlans. So we cut back over to Mogo. The Green Lantern Corps, especially the trainees, are setting up essentially the danger room. They're setting up the training area. And we have one of the people, Aricia, is kind of guiding them along. And she's like, oh yeah, this is perfectly on your level. You don't need to be going out there doing anything dangerous. And they're like, our first days were filled with nothing but danger. We're kind of ready for it. And it's like, no, you shouldn't have been put through that already. Let's get you trainees just like figuring out what's going on. And as soon as that happens, call comes in. It's Hal's thing, basically saying, hey, we Green Lanterns have the most powerful light thing in the world. It's a finite resource. We just found that out. But now we're going to be hunting down anybody who uses the light besides us. And also we're going to be total dictators about it. So you got a problem with that? Screw you. And all the planets that we've visited and seen over the course of Green Lantern Corps in the past, like 6 issues, they're all seeing this and just be like, see, they're horrible. Green Lanterns suck. They're the worst. So back over on John's side of that, he's like, why would he send that message? Clearly that's not making any friends. So immediately they start getting calls from different sectors, all reporting that they're being attacked. They have no idea what's going on. And John's immediately like, okay, Ring, out of everyone who's reporting in, what's the closest sector? And it's like, oh, well, it's sector 0424. And he's like, cool, that's where we're going. And immediately everyone zaps out and starts flying their way over there. So as they're flying over, Fatality talks to John, just being like, hey, Hal said he was going to take the rings from every other corps. And John's like, I swear I will never let him take your ring. I promise you that. And he's like, okay, can you promise me that he's not going to take it from all of my sisters in my corps? And John's like, I can promise you that I'll try. So at that point, they arrive in the sector, and Vash has got a machine gun construct going. Turns out that the thing attacking the Green Lantern Corps clubhouse is the Kindt. And they've got a giant-ass ship there, and it's like, yeah, no, that makes sense. This is their like home sector. And John's like, all right, 3 of us are going up to take on the Kindt directly. 3 of us are going to go into the clubhouse and try to save whoever we can. And as we see inside the clubhouse, there's only one lantern who's actually in there. Her power's been drained from a ring. And the Kindt are like, well, geez, it's no fun if we barely even have to use our weapons. Like, we're going to lose our lose our edge if we don't actually end up training at all. But then the John Fatality and one named Oliversity, who's a snake Green Lantern, bust in, save the other Green Lantern, give her a charge back up on her ring. It's like, cool, you good? They drained your ring? All right, we're dealing with it. Let's head up and fight the rest of them in the ship. So they head up. John ends up making a snowplow as a construct and pushes a bunch of them out of the way to get themselves up there. So when we come back inside the ship, and the Durlans are fully revealing themselves, saying, yep, we're the Durlans. We're not a fairy tale. We're totally real. And it's all been because of us that this technology of being able to drain the Green Lantern's rings, that's out there now. We've infiltrated the core, and we're going to destroy them from the inside, and then we'll divvy up the rest of the universe between all of us. And all the other villains are like, why should we listen to you? That sounds like we could easily do better on our own than having to divide up the universe. And the Durlans are like, oh, I'm sorry. This wasn't a question. This is what we're doing. So, cutting back over to 424, they make their way inside of the Coon ship with just giant drills and stuff like that. Immediately, there's a shootout, and the Coons start firing off the draining machines again, to which one of them, the one that had to drain before, is like, not letting that happen again. So she takes it off, takes out the rest of them. Oliversity bites the commander there, or the captain, and injects him with some sort of venom that forces him to tell the truth. So it's like, all right, just give him a few minutes for that to take effect. Meanwhile, the other lanterns that were actually on this ship and were about to be executed, they get given their rings back and given a full charge again. One of them is actually Kundian, so that was kind of a shock for them, just being like, look, I don't like my people, but I didn't think they'd actually kill me. So at that point, they start interrogating the captain. And it's like, cool, what are you doing with the lanterns, bro? And he's just like, oh, we need their rings. We're going to build so many weapons. And it's like, all right, where'd you get the technology to drain it? And it's like, oh, we got it from Durlans. They're our partners now. And they're just like, oh, of course. The Coons and the Durlans are teaming up. That makes perfect sense. Why did we not see that coming? So as the captain is about to like lunge for John, stab him, Fatality stabs him through the chest, killing him. And John's like, dude, I just covered your back with the whole no murdering thing. Can we please not do that? And she's like, I'm sorry. I just saved your life there. I thought that was a cool thing to do. So at that point, the whole ship, they just leave it behind. They blow up the main like cockpit, and they're like, all right, whatever. We'll deal with that later. We got to head back to Mogo because we're not able to get in contact right now, which means the core itself is under attack. So let's go off and head back home. And as they're about to fly off, they are immediately intercepted by like an entire fleet of Coon ships. And doesn't look good, but that's for next issue. Actually, next issue is an annual, so I think we might wrap it up there. We'll see. Regardless, solid, good moving. I like the fact that, like, obviously Venditti has his hands on both this book and the core Green Lantern book. I'd imagine it's just general plotting, though, for this book, where Jensen's the one actually writing it. But no, it's all flowing nicely together. It feels like cohesive universe. I'm down with all of it. I think that this issue is probably, it's like a 7.5. But if only because it had to spend 3 whole pages basically doing the same thing that Green Lantern 27 did, which is just, here's the message going out and we're seeing a bunch of people react to it. You know, it just felt like a little bit of repetition there. But as for the Durlan plot, as for everything else, I like it. I want to see where it goes. I'm liking the direction of things here. So yeah, 7.5 feels about right. Justice League 3000 number 2, written by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis, art by Howard Porter. So last issue was just kind of the introduction of what is the Justice League 3000. They're all resurrected member of the Justice League, but they kind of had to fill in the gaps of their DNA with like folklore and what people thought of them back in the day. So we get the story that there's a dictatorship over the galaxy, blah, 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 whatever. We land on this planet. Right on the fringes of the galaxy, a ship lands and immediately sets up a interstellar portal, which the Justice League immediately pops through and says, Jesus Christ, this place sucks. It's a dump. Why did we land here? And we get the Wonder Twins, Terry and Terry, talking through the comms saying, yeah, you guys remember space travel as using spaceships, but now here in the 31st century, we just use portals everywhere, and it's much faster. Why would you have to waste your time flying otherwise? And it's like, okay, but then why are we on this like rat heap of a planet? This place sucks. And it's like, well, the planet we actually want to send you to is close by, but the portals there are all going to be detectable, and therefore, you're going to be seen. We need you to have the element of surprise, so we're going to have you fly over there with Green Lantern carrying you over. So at that point, Superman's like, excuse me, I can fly myself. Thank you very much. And everyone's like, no, you can't. Look, your powers are different now. They're close. We couldn't get the flight right, but like, you cannot fly anymore. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm Superman. Of course I can. And Terry's like, excuse me, just 1 second. Goes to press mute and is like, hey, brother, they're idiots. They are brain-damaged children in superhuman bodies, and they are going to ruin everything. But it turns out Terry didn't hit mute, and the Justice League hears all this, and just like, wow, thanks, man. Super cool of you. So Green Lantern starts flying him over across the planets, and they're just like, can you believe that? They called us brain-damaged children. And Superman and Wonder Woman are super pissed off about it, but Batman's like, I mean, clearly to some extent we did have brain damage, and Clark is definitely a child. And this whole time he calls him Clark. He never once calls him Superman. And every single time Superman's like, seriously, I'm Superman. Clark Kent is not real. It's not me, man. So at that point, Wonder Woman's just like, okay, whatever. Lantern, how much longer is this going to take? I want to feel the bones of our enemies crushed beneath our boots. So at this point, we get a little bit more explanation of the plan. Plan is that this is the outskirts of the dictatorship's like territory. Nobody remembers this area, but there are still some like outposts and garrisons. So the Justice League is going to go through a few of the planets, taking out the garrisons, and they're going to essentially send a message to the Inner Empire. So Terry and Terry are like, okay, the Justice League hates me because I called them brain-damaged children. The brother's like, no. I mean, yes, but like, they'll get over it. They're the Justice League after all. And brother convinces his sister, like, look, they fought the Persuader. We've got all of our intel good. We're going to do fine. Everything's going to be great here. And then we'll show them to believe in the Justice League. And then all of a sudden the comms pop up saying, hey, you guys should know on that planet, we've confirmed that Locus is there. So as Green Lantern's about to land on the planet, brother Terry calls up being like, hey, you guys there? And he's like, yeah, we're about to land. And he's like, no, seriously, do not do that. You need to evacuate now. The mission is off. Locus is there. And then it's like, who the hell's Locus? What's important about her? It's like, she's like a 19-year-old girl, or maybe she's immortal, but she looks 19 and she has reality warping powers. And that's just, you aren't set to deal with that, man. So we got to go. And Superman's like, excuse me? Maybe you haven't heard the name before, but I'm Superman. And he busts out of Green Lantern's bubble, ready to fly down to Earth. But he can't fly, so he just starts plummeting down. And immediately the brother and sisters are like, oh my God, he's going to die. So at that point, Green Lantern's like, hey, should we go grab him? And Batman's like, wait. Just let him fall for a bit. I really like this. Let me keep watching this. So Terry goes down, grabs him, Green Lantern goes down, grabs him. Sister Terry's like, this is the disaster that I'm talking about. This is what's awful, because they're going to land on that planet. They're going to be detected by Locus, and they're all going to be killed immediately. And they double check the proof, make sure that all their like info was good. It definitely is. And it's just like, okay, is she at least maybe in a good mood right now? It's like, well, no, probably not. And it's like, all right, our Justice League is dead. So we meet up at a bar on this planet that they're on. And Locus is talking about a breakup she went through because she found her boyfriend cheating on her. So she said, you guys want to be together? Fine. She turned the boyfriend into a mass of cancerous cells and put it into the girl's brain. And they were both apparently dead within 7 seconds. So, yeah, she's got issues. So at that point, she gets a call up from somebody. It says it eventually here. Oh, Co-Eval or Coval. I might bounce between the two. It's just like a face on a monitor, and it's basically saying, hey, you drinking your sorrows away? And she's like, I can't get drunk, but that's what I'm trying to do. And it's like, great, cool. Anyway, I know you've been bummed out. I know you've been looking for something to do. We just got news that Cadmus has sent like a Justice League, whatever that means, onto the planet. So why don't you go deal with that? And you can like straight up kill them all. And she's like, oh, okay, sweet, awesome. But like, why are you telling me this? It's like, because I know you've been bummed. Go ahead, have fun. So at this point, they've all landed. Clark and Batman are like getting into a fight about it again because he's just like, now say thank you to Green Lantern for saving your life. And he's like, I didn't need saving. I'm Superman. I can fly. I'm invulnerable. So Flash is currently listening to the information about the Five, which are the dictatorship that rule everything. And he's like, yeah, no, they sound like they're like God level threats. One of them just turned off all the technology in like the known universe, like on a whim. That's something, can we even take that on? And Diana's like, hey, even gods can be killed. Trust me. I know. And Flash is like, all right, well, I'm going to go take a look at those garrisons that we were supposed to come here to fight. See if we can get any more info on that. So he runs off. And as soon as he's gone, Locust shows up. She just like is there. And she immediately is like, hey, Green Lantern, you're looking fine today. And he's like, what? Who are you? Where did you come from? And it's like, Terry pops up being like, hello, Reality Warpers. I said this. She's just going to show up and she's going to absolutely destroy you. Do not engage. And Superman's immediately like, hey, don't know if you've heard, but I'm Superman. Literally Superman. And she's like, okay, get away from me. And he's like, how about I give you a history lesson? And she's like, oh, how about I give you a lesson? And she just punts him across the planet. So at that point, she comes up on Green Lantern saying, and where was my boyfriend when he was creeping on me? And Green Lantern's like, I'm sorry, boyfriend? And he's like, it's okay, I forgive you. And he's like, okay, hold on now, you witch. And she's like, ooh, I like it when my boyfriends are all alpha with me. And at this point, Wonder Woman's had enough. She grabs Locust by the throat, tries to throw her down, but then Locust just switched places and then throws Wonder Woman down on the ground saying, all right, well, that's enough of that. So she's about to kill Wonder Woman. Batman throws some light stun grenades or something, to which Locust is like, you idiots think that light is all this special stuff, but everything in the universe is made up of light. You're just too stupid to see it. So at this point, Superman finally comes back and he's like, maybe you didn't hear me the first time, kid. Name's Superman. And he just throws a punch and it actually manages to connect. So Superman's in a fight with Locust now. Barry comes back and he's just like, hey, I was looking around the planet. You guys aren't going to believe. And then he sees that the fight's going on. Just like, oh, what's going on? It's like, oh, that's Locust. She's here to kill us all. It's like, oh, geez, all right, that's an issue. So at that point, Batman points out, like, look, she can't bend reality if she's disoriented. If we can just keep her off her game. So Barry runs in trying to, like, speed around her, get her all dizzy. But Locust manages to throw Superman into Barry, and then she just freezes time. And she's like, that's enough. Everyone stop. I am in a better mood now, but, I want to take a look at you because they said something about a resurrected Justice League. What's that about? Are you really resurrected? And she looks at Barry and then just pops him apart. You just see all of his skin and bone and muscle and guts just completely separate. And she's like, nah, it doesn't look like you're anything special. Looks like you're just a normal person. That's lame. You're probably not even like real resurrection. You're probably like something stupid or like a lie. Meanwhile, Terry in the room are seeing Barry be torn apart. And the other's like, oh my God, the Flash is dead. Like the Flash is just absolutely killed. That's awful. So she lets Barry's guts fall to the floor. Meanwhile, she goes over to Green Lantern, shrinks him down, and swallows him, saying, I'm keeping you safe with me. Meanwhile, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, I'm just going to go ahead and doom you. I'm teleporting you off to a planet of Takron Galtos, where you'll be praying that I would have murdered you now. Also, say hi to Co-Eval when you get there. She's a good friend of mine. So teleports them away off to another planet, says, hey, don't worry about it, Green Lantern. Me and you are going to go on a date night as soon as I throw you up. And as Terry and Terry are sitting there licking their wounds in the main building, they get a notice from the intel officer that says, hey, turns out that the garrisons that we were coming here to destroy were already destroyed 3 years ago. We had bad intel. Co-Eval set us up for all of this to happen from the beginning. And that's the issue. Everything is now awful, and Barry Allen is dead. I kind of like it. I'm not going to lie. The first issue was way too much exposition. It was way too much of here's how all these people don't get along and raga fragga blaga. But this one, it's just a story. We're just getting off to it. We're dealing with the fact that these characters are all terrible in their own ways. I don't know. I'm kind of down for it. I kind of like it. It's creative at the very least. It's something that I'm not seeing across anything else in the DCU. Yeah, no, it's just a breath of fresh air, if I'm being honest. It's something that I didn't really expect to enjoy that much, but it does have its humorous moments. So overall, I'm going to say probably a 7. Just straight up, it's a fine issue, doing well, looking forward to the next one. World's Finest number 19, written by Paul Levitz, art by R.B. Silva and Scott McDaniel. This is a prelude to the First Contact crossover. I don't want to call it an event, but it is a prelude to that. So we open up with Power Girl, whose powers have still been on the fritz, is down on the ocean floor about to be attacked by a giant squid. And she's just like, screw you, man. I'm so not up for this today. Do you understand how many legal fees I have to pay? Just get out of here. And she takes the squid, spins it around, throws it up out of the ocean over a fishing boat. And we get the description that she's down on the ocean floor basically looking for raw diamonds, specifically large ones, because of all the events where she lost her business, Star, I think, Industries, she essentially needs to get it back, and in doing so, she has to pay lawyers an exorbitant amount of money, but because her industry's gone, she doesn't have the money. So she is using diamonds, refining them, and selling them in order to get like several $1,000s at a time. And she's like, yep, all of this sucks. And over on Earth, we had a saying of kill all the lawyers. I hope that's present on this Earth too. So she flies up out of the water. She rocks the fishing boat a little bit, and there's just a fun little bit where they see her, and she's like, all right, next stop, Amsterdam, and hopefully I can time this right where I can sell these diamonds and get a pub crawl in before I need to meet Helena. So over in New York, we see them in a hotel room. Karen's getting cleaned up, and she's like, yeah, no, I'm just barely scraping by here. We have to go hotel to hotel, but they are swanky as hell hotels. And she's like, yeah, I'm scraping by here until I can get my company back, but I will get it back. And Helena's like, I'm not so sure. I mean, like, yeah, the lawyers might be able to square it away, but if Desaad shows up again, what are they going to do about it? And she's like, he's gone. Don't worry about it. It's not a problem. So at that point, Helena calls her out saying like, look, you still haven't even managed to get your powers back normal. Like there's a big issue here of being able to trust that you're going to be able to do this. And she's like, oh no, it's been like a week. I'm feeling much better. So she changes in her outfit before Helena can even react. She grabs Helena and like flies her out the window and says, oh, let's just take a look around the park. It's beautiful at this time of day. And she flies around the park and tries to be like optimistic about everything. Meanwhile, of course, as she's flying over Central Park, her powers go out. She ends up dropping Helena. Helena uses some of her acrobatics to land on her feet, but she's like, seriously? Like, if it wasn't me, they'd be dead right now. You need to figure out how to get your powers back and before you accidentally kill someone. And she's like, oh, you have no sense of humor. So next scene is her scowling at a boardroom meeting where she's talking to her lawyers, and lawyers are trying to crack jokes about like, hey, what's up with all the diamonds? And she's like, I'm sorry, do you want to get paid? Do you want to get paid while I'm still waiting for my company to get back to me? Speaking of which, what are you doing right now? And the lawyer's like, well, we set a date with the SEC. We're going to get that all taken care of. And she's like, oh, are you? When's that meeting going to happen? It's like, oh, it's not that yet. And she's like, well, how about you set it, okay? And as she's getting more and more pissed, all of a sudden her heat vision goes off and the stack of papers in front of her catches on fire. And she knows it's coming from her, but nobody else can see the heat vision beams. So everyone's like, oh, call 911. The sprinklers are going off. They lead her out of the room trying to get her to safety while she's covering up her eyes, thinking she's just blocking them from smoke. Meanwhile, she's like, yeah, no, I'm good, thanks. And she tries running out of the room. She gets up to the roof and she's just can't make it stop. It just keeps on going. So meanwhile, we're in France somehow, and Helena's having a meal. She's waiting for Karen to well, no, she's not waiting for Karen to show up, but she's thinking about Karen saying like, yeah, no, she's completely out of control. Somebody's going to get hurt, but like, I still want to like take care of her, even if it's before I take care of myself. And she kind of reflects on that, saying like, everything that's happened recently, and she doesn't have anyone that's really like looking out for her. She always feels like she's the one who's having to look out for everyone else. And as she is walking through a fountain area, she is interrupted by a father and son who are playing ball with each other. The ball goes past him, and the father's like, oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. She's like, oh, no big deal. And she watches him play and just be like, yeah, everyone needs their dad every once in a while. So up on the roof, Karen's just trying to count down to calm herself. Eventually her heat vision goes off and she's like, okay, that wasn't all right. People could have died. I need to go talk to someone who can take care of this. And unfortunately, I only have one person I can think of. So we cut back to Lena. She's in her huntress gear and she is outside of Wayne Manor. And she's like, well, I got two options. One, I can just walk in through the front door and say, hey, Dad, it's me. I'm home. Two, I can walk in through the front door and instead say, hey, I'm the daughter that you might have someday. And she's like, no, neither of those are going to work. Option three, I sneak in through Batcave using what I know about him. So she starts sneaking in the back. Meanwhile, Batman's already watching her on surveillance. He knows she's there. And as she's using all these different things to get in, Batman's just like lowering the perimeter the whole way there, just being like, yeah, no, well, I want to see what she has to do. So he lets down all of the fences. She gets in thinking that it was all on her own. And she's just like, wow, this place is a dump. Hopefully, as he gets older, it's going to look more like the one I remember, because I need to remember that this is younger Batman in this universe. And as she's looking through some of his stuff, Batman shows up just being like, hey, why are you in my cave? And she's like, hey, look, yeah, sorry about the break-in, but like, we really need to talk. And as she takes a step forward towards Batman, he activates like a laser grid thing going on. And he's like, all right, now you can explain yourself. And she says, well, it's a long story. So that leads into First Contact, which is going to begin in the next issue of Batman/Superman, issue number 8. So yeah, that's there. Additionally, there's going to be an annual at the end of the month, 2 weeks, somewhere in there, where that's going to describe another prelude to World's Finest, just one of their history bits. So yeah, honestly, I think I like this issue more than I've liked most of the recent ones. Because most of the recent ones, we've had that weird little backstory line of, oh, we got this shadow tattoo lady and she's attacking fashion shows. And I'm like, I don't know. It just never felt like it was a focus, because we always had this back line of Desaad and the powers not working and stuff like that. This one, I like it because the whole reason that they're doing any of this is because of the powers not working. So we're going to be doing this crossover with Batman Superman, and it feels earned. It feels like this is where the story is now leading. That being said, I kind of feel like they wanted to do this crossover like 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and they just had to wait until Batman Superman finished its first arc in order to get there. So a little bit of poor editorial work on that. Probably could have like paced this book out better, but all in all, now that we're there, I'd say this issue's at least like 7. It's got some funny lines, it's got some good visuals, and I feel like I actually followed the story for the first time in months. So yeah, 7 feels good. And that's it. That's all the comics that DC Comics put out this January 15th, 2014. And I don't really have anything to say here at the end, so I'm going to wrap it up pretty quick. But I did want to say the next episode is episode 125, which seems like it ends in 5. I guess it's kind of a round number. But here's the thing. I know when this show ends. It's the benefit of doing it 10 years later. I know when the New 52 ends, and it ends on episode 250. And for those of you who are not that good at math, 250 is twice 125. So, next episode, I'm halfway done this show. I've gone through half of the New 52, and I'm going to keep it there. I'm going to stop, because I want to do all like the hoo-ha crazy talking about how cool that is next episode, but I'm just letting you know I'm excited. So, next episode, what will we be talking about? I'm glad you asked. So, next episode we have, in no particular order, Batman, Batman and Robin, Batwoman, Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn, Red Hood and the Outlaws, Supergirl, Green Lantern New Guardians, Justice League, Wonder Woman, Animal Man, and Pandora. Out of those, I think there's only 2 event comics. We've got a Gothtopia tie-in with Birds of Prey, and Pandora is, of course, part of Blight, which will be going on until the day I die, apparently. So yeah, all that's coming up next week. Be sure to check that out. If you have any comments on anything that I read this week, last week, any week at all, go ahead and hit me up in the comments down below this video. Or if you are listening to this, we have a Discord and a Reddit and a Patreon, all of which are available in the description wherever the hell you're watching or listening to this. But regardless, thank you so much for watching or listening to this. However it is you consume this podcast, be sure to tune in next week and give us a thumbs up or 5 stars or whatever it is you choose to do. Again, thank you. And always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.